Physical systems are bound by limits. No amount of human decree can negotiate with the raw displacement of mass and energy. While transitioning to a sustainable society is often framed as a challenge of technology or policy, a structural analysis suggests a deeper conflict, a mathematical divergence between our ecological targets and the framework of the current monetary regime. This split screen illustrates the tension. On the left are the closed-loop realities of Earth's finite ecological boundaries. On the right, the trajectory of global fiat debt. The closed ecological loop follows the laws of physics. The exponential curve follows laws of arithmetic and state decree. This suggests that any attempt to achieve ecological equilibrium without addressing the underlying engine of money creation faces a structural barrier. To evaluate how these systems interact, we must first distinguish between money and real wealth. In thermoeconomic terms, real wealth is physical. It consists of low-entropy matter and energy that has been transformed into a form useful for human purposes. Fiat money functions differently. It possesses no intrinsic physical utility. Instead, it acts as an inconvertible claim on future labor and resources. This chart contrasts their governing dynamics. Physical wealth is subject to entropy. It breaks down and dissipates over time. Fiat money is subject to interest. It grows through mathematical increment. This ontological divergence creates a virtual wealth paradox. Because fiat systems allow for money creation without prior production, the system shifts towards a high time preference, prioritizing present consumption over long-term ecological stability. The first law of thermodynamics establishes the boundary for all economic activity. Energy cannot be created from nothing. Every economic product results from a physical transformation, and every service requires the expenditure of energy. Our monetary system deviates from this physical conservation through fractional reserve banking. This allows the money supply to multiply far beyond the tangible assets underwriting it. Looking at this energy hierarchy, we track high-quality energy performing work and dissipating as waste heat. But notice the counterflowing line for fiat money. It moves independently of these energy flows. This severs the feedback loop between the economy and the environment. Money continues to flow towards extractive profits even as the underlying ecological structure is threatened. The second law of thermodynamics dictates that entropy must increase in a closed system. Economic activity creates local order, while inevitably producing greater disorder in the form of pollution and heat. When money creation is decoupled from physical work, it drives economic activity that accelerates this global environmental disorder faster than natural systems can regenerate. The structural barrier to sustainability is rooted in the growth imperative, inherent to debt-based money. Since fiat money is created as debt-bearing interest, the economy must continuously generate surplus value just to service the existing debt. This formula is used by central banks to assess sovereign sustainability. It reveals the mathematical pressure on the system. We need to isolate two variables, the nominal interest rate, I, and the nominal growth rate, G. If the interest rate outpaces the growth rate, the debt-to-GDP ratio triggers an exponential snowball effect, leading towards insolvency. To prevent collapse, the system must force the growth variable, G, high enough to outpace the interest rate. This mathematical growth variable correlates directly to physical reality. To increase G, society must increase its material consumption and energy throughput. Consequently, the net zero target becomes unreachable when the economy is legally mandated to force material expansion just to prevent sovereign default. Historical data explains how the global economy arrived at this exponential requirement. Before 1971, money was tethered to a physical anchor that required significant energy to produce. This system faced a challenge in the mid-20th century, the arrival of the massive baby boomer generation into the workforce. The physical constraints of a gold-backed system lacked the liquidity required to support the credit and consumption demands of such a large population. The 1971 Nixon shock allowed for the digital expansion of the economy, providing the capital needed to accommodate this demographic bulge. Data shows a direct correlation. Virtual wealth creation closely tracks the demographic expansion. This is captured by the generational entropy function, where virtual wealth concentrates in the oldest cohorts over time. To maintain this virtual wealth, the resulting debt burden is pushed onto the smaller, younger generations. The Fiat experiment acted as a temporary mechanism to pull future physical prosperity into the present to satisfy the largest demographic pulse in history. As the boomer generation retires, the system enters a digestion phase, shifting from a demographic dividend to a demographic deficit. The economy is now struggling to process this transition. The large working-age population that was previously disinflationary is being replaced by a retired class, creating structural inflationary pressure. This creates a double squeeze. Dependency burdens strain tax revenues, while retirees may be forced into wave-selling their assets to finance their transition. The math of debt saturation shows that as the dependency ratio rises and consumption from the perennial class slows, the debt ratio must expand. This forces a choice between unprecedented sovereign default or the continued debasement of the currency. History suggests that periods of institutional destruction like this lead to rebuilding, a phase often called the fourth turning. The catalyst is the great wealth transfer to younger generations, who prioritize cryptographic proof over governmental decree. Systemic survival likely requires a return to a hard monetary standard defined by physical scarcity. Decoupling societal survival from infinite material extraction requires a structural shift away from the debt growth mandate. For a net zero steady state to function, the money supply must lock back into the metabolic capacity of the planet. Real wealth is a physical phenomenon. As the demographic pulse fades, we can no longer negotiate with thermodynamics. We must re-anchor our money to reality, or watch the planetary foundation collapse under the weight of virtual math.